Hello and welcome back to the When You're podcast, the podcast for when you're doing anything. Today we're talking about when you're watching the final episode of Pokemon. Now, Pokemon itself isn't officially over. I'm just talking about between the relationship, the journey we've been following with Ash Ketchum. I mean, what can I say about this? I've been a big fan of this franchise since the day I could pick up a Game Boy, since the day I could officially play Pokemon. Since the first time I saw Pikachu, I was a fan, you know? I remember watching the series from beginning to end early on. I remember watching it on TV since I was a kid. I mean, it's something I've grown up with. It's something I've loved dearly since childhood, and it's something that's always going to have a place in my heart forever and ever. And to see it come to a final conclusion now is pretty. It hits you in the feels, you know. It feels like your nostalgia, your childhood, everything is kind of slowly crumbling away to make way for the new stuff, you know. It's like watching old plants, or I don't know what it like. It's just seeing like the old plants kind of like die out a little bit, or you know, maybe they get caught on fire or whatever, you know what I mean? Like they die out, and then the new ones grow in, you know, and life begins anew, right? Like that's how I feel. But overall, I just want to say, you know, to the watching Ash Ketchum as a kid for me was just, it was watching myself, you know. I felt so much inspiration. I felt so much fun and charm come from him, you know, and he inspired me to continue to pursue my dreams, to continue to do what I love and find something that I'm passionate about, and to follow it to the very end, or to stick with it, you know. I don't think anybody can question Ash's commitment to loving Pokemon and to journeying and to having fun and adventures, you know what I mean? But this last episode kind of poses the question of like, now that he's the champion, which I'm very excited about, although I wish that, you know, there are some nitpicks I could have with the journey's ending, but I'll put all those aside to say that, like, now that he's the champion, what does it really mean to be a Pokemon master? It's not just being the best Pokemon battler. It's about, you know, it's about connecting with all Pokemon. It's about being able to understand, to learn, and to grow with Pokemon. That's what a Pokemon master is. And sure, Pokemon battles are a part of it. That's how you bond. That's how you gain strength together. That's how you as live Pokemon and humans living in harmony can unite and to find adversity and find a way to become stronger people likewise, you know what I mean? And it's just the little kid in me, just like, it's looking at the 10-year-old me rewatching all of the episodes of Pokemon, you know, from the Indigo League to Orange Islands, and then to Hoenn, Johto, Hoenn, Sinnoh, Unova, Kalos, Alola, to Galar. I mean, all of it through and through, rewatching and looking back on. I mean, I used to watch it on they didn't play reruns on Cartoon Network, but they had like this like Cartoon Network second channel called Boomerang, and there they would play reruns of Pokemon, like from the first episode. And I remember I just tuned in. It was the first episode. I'd never seen it before, because they were playing the new stuff. They weren't playing any of the old stuff. So when I found that channel and they were playing all the old ones, I just started watching it. And I just remember seeing it from beginning to end. In every single episode, just like, it was just exciting to see new Pokemon, new trainers, see Ash battle and Pikachu battle and do all kinds of crazy stuff, you know? It just felt like a simpler time, a more peaceful time, a lot more fun, and there were so many more possibilities, you know, especially with Pokemon, especially with myself. It just felt like it was a beautiful point in time of my childhood where I could just hone in and focus and just purely enjoy and love Pokemon. And I still love Pokemon now, but it was just different back then, and it was all fresh and new, and it was fun, you know. So focusing on what it means to be a Pokemon master, it's just it's all about it's not about catching every single Pokemon, right? Like he doesn't, Ash doesn't catch every single Pokemon known to man, but what he does do is he meets them. He has stories about them. He interacts with them, and he makes Pokemon's lives important. And because he makes them important, he becomes important to them, right? And that goes with all kinds of Pokemon. There are certain Pokemon that are kind of like boring. For instance, a Rattata. Yeah, it's Rattata. Like a little simple Rattata, we would never like put together a story for that Pokemon, right? Because it's pretty boring. It's one of the earliest Pokemons you can get in the game and in the world, right? It's like a beginner Pokemon. It's not something that you like maintain throughout your team or something like that, right? But you see that like maybe in the story or maybe in the anime or in the show, they highlight certain Pokemon, certain interesting feats about them. They give them a trainer. They give them some, there's just something. There's a bond between them, right? And while we sometimes take them for granted, they're still Pokemon. They're still there. They're still a part of the journey. You know what I mean? And being able to learn about them, to grow with them, to connect with them is all much more important. So for me, I mean, listen, I've played every single Pokemon game known to man. Well, almost all of them. I'll say for a few of them, I don't really play like the Pokemon Ranger games or anything like that. I haven't played any of those. Which, don't get me wrong, they look cool. It's just that I prefer like the main, like the main story games. But anyways, what I was trying to say was that like I've played the games, right? And what I enjoy about each and every single one of them is trying to catch every single kind of Pokemon. That's like the goal for me. But it's always like I have to ask for trade. I have to trade Pokemon. There's certain exclusives to different games and whatnot. So for me, I think like a big part of it is obviously catching it, but it's also like getting to explore and getting to understand these new Pokemon and build a team, right? It's always, for me, it's like I want to beat the game. I want to become champ. The goals are all the same, right? You become Pokemon champion, you battle, you train, you level up a team of Pokemon, you catch a bunch of Pokemon, right? But for me, I just, there's something I really like about journeying and about building the team, building a perfect and strong team, a diverse team that everybody can rely on. So, and I'm extremely excited about where Pokemon is now, as opposed to, I mean, back in the day, it was just a simple, playing Pokemon Blue. He would get lost in in Mount Moon and stuff. I mean, it would be nuts. But looking back to where that started there, and then to where the Pokemon games are now, like I think it's come so far. I recently was playing Pokemon Arceus, right? And I was just thinking like, this is so crazy that I get to like jump and dodge and move and to avoid and I could get attacked. I could get killed in this game. Like let me try to articulate my words here. I'm just super excited about it. And I find it so enjoyable and so much fun. And it kind of brought a new side to it all, which is that like Pokemon have always existed. And so it stands to reason that they would exist back in the day and, ancient times and, and ancestors of Pokemon, people in Pokemon living together back in the day, back before it was more modern. And I think it's really funny that in that game, I'm from like the future and then I go into the past and now I'm just stuck there forever. Like there's no chance of me going back to the future. I'm stuck in the past, for where I shall remain for the rest of my days. So I say all of this to be like, I love Pokemon. It's been in my heart since I was a kid. And now that it's a franchise that has lasted so long and it's the biggest franchise in the world, it means that like I never have to outgrow it. I can never outgrow it because it's always, it's always evolving, huh? Yeah, there's always something new. There's always something else going on with it. And I always find it very, very fun. And it keeps my inner child alive. And I like that. And it definitely makes me wonder where, because I think maybe, entertainment wise, it's always been like the show, like the show, and then like they would come out with a movie every now and again, but it would very rarely be in like big theaters or, until recently, like some people saw it in theaters, right? They released that new one and they put it in theaters and whatnot. But like, I was always thinking maybe they should do more. Like they can't just do one show, right? Like that's what they've been doing all these, past 25, 26 years is they've been doing one show consistently season after season after season after season, building and building and building. But it just feels like they're missing out on a lot of opportunities and a lot of more Pokemon stories. So it just picks up my brain every now and then. And I think about like, what about Pokemon? What about a Pokemon mystery movie or a Pokemon tournament movie where it's like we see 8 trainers in a 2-hour movie like battle it out and then the final 2 compete and then it's like a huge deal. You know what I'm saying? Like that. That's kind of like where my mind is at now. That this show has ended between Ash and Pikachu. It's kind of just concluded. They finalized that so that way they can move on forward with something new. And now I'm trying to think of like, well, what's new? Like new can't just be a whole new show, right? Like that's part of it, but you can expand, you can reach so much further, you can do so much more now that you kind of, and you could have always done this, but like now that they kind of like are letting the shackles loose a bit, or they're kind of like, let's expand, let's do something completely different and something completely new. Now is the time to do that, to venture out forward. It makes me think of like they did that Star Wars thing, whereas like they gave like different studios or those different animation studios the opportunity to make like a Star Wars story. They could each make their own little short episode that's like about Jedis, about the Sith, about all of it, right? That was kind of the concept they were going for, and then they were going to put it all on Disney Plus. And so, in my opinion, when I watched those Star Wars shows, it was kind of like they were so short, and I felt like the premises of all of them were pretty much the same. None of them had any like originality to it. It all just kind of felt like they all were kind of floating in the same direction. Oh my gosh, at the last minute they become a Jedi, or they had a master and then they became a Jedi, and then this guy's a master and this is the Jedi, and somebody else is like, they're fighting each other and one's the Jedi and one's the Sith. It just felt like very repetitive to me, and I didn't really enjoy it all that much. Not that they were bad, but it was just like the repetition of them all was just a bit like, come on, give me something new, something fresh, at least. So that's how I'm feeling now. Is like, now that they're moving on forward, it's like you could punch a whole bunch of new stories onto us. It doesn't have to be about one main story anymore. It could be about this story or that story, and you can get different studios to back you up on it. And you got the money. If there's one franchise that can spend the money on making good stories about Pokemon, it's Pokemon. I mean, come on. So, thinking ahead of it all, and especially where everything is now, with Pokemon cards, with digital games, with Nintendo games, it's all coming together. It's all flowing pretty well. And if there's one thing I know, is that when they release a new game, whether it's on the Switch or it has been on the Nintendo DS, or they did it on the Game Boys and whatnot, I'm gonna buy it. No matter what, I'm buying it. I'm not gonna hold back. I'm not gonna not spend my money on it. You think I'm gonna miss out on a new game? Are you out of your mind? Are you crazy? So they got me. The franchise has already got me, but they still can improve and they can still do better. And that's just kind of like how I'm thinking right now, is like, how can I contribute to this franchise? How can I help out, in any way, shape, or form? How can I let my creative mind, push this place into a new direction, and to put a little bit of my own special touch onto the franchise as a whole, And I just feel there's so many possibilities with this, and I hope it's not just one new show and that's it. But I am looking forward to the new. I mean, I like this new game. I definitely liked it. I enjoyed it. I had a good time with it. There are a few bugs. There are a few problems. There are a lot of bugs, and there are a lot of problems, and there are a lot of issues per se with the game that I won't go in, that I won't personally get into. I'm just saying that, like, all in all, I enjoy what they're doing, and I'm excited to see what they do moving forward. Now, we're moving on to Generation 10. This is a big deal. This is a huge deal. I mean, if you had told me, like around the time when Pokemon Black and White came out, if you had told me, listen, there's going to be 5 more, or 4 or 5 more, I would have been like, you're out of your mind. Like, that's too much. Like, they just came out with this new one, and you're telling me that there's 4 more that are going to come from this? Like, how big are these regions? You know what I mean? I was like, there's not, but then I came to realize, they're regions. They're not whole continents. They're not whole anything. They're just small regions. You know what I mean? If you've ever seen if you look on a map of a region, it's small compared to like a whole country, a whole continent, really. So you just kind of have to think to yourself, like, it's a big world, and these are small little regions just placed throughout the whole big world that is Pokemon. So you just have to think like that. Anyways, thinking about Generation 10, I have no idea what they can do. I feel like one of the best things they ever did was regional variants. Like, that was a great idea, because it gives you the chance to get something new out of something old, and I thought that was ingenious. But as for any new Pokemon or anything else moving forward, it's kind of like difficult for me to think, like, what could they possibly come up with next? And I was like, I got no idea. But obviously, they're going to come up with something. They're going to come up with a new system, because, like, again, with Pokemon Arceus, they just reused old Pokemon, but they're different from their original regions. So you got Cyndaquil, you got Rowlet, and then you got Oshawott. All three of them together. They're starter Pokemon. They're fresh. It's brand new. You could pick between any of those three, and then those have their own Hisuian regional evolutions. So that's cool too. Like that's a brilliant idea. That's a brilliant way to do it. You know what I mean? But moving forward, as for making like a brand spanking new bunch of Pokemon, it just feels like it keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And the last time they really came out with like a whole new set, like a whole brand new thing, was back in Unova. And I don't know if they can do that again. It's very, I'm not saying they can't. I'm just saying that it'd be very, it'd be a big change. But maybe that's what they need right now. That's definitely what I feel is the direction they want to take, is just completely outside of the box, outside of the Pokeball, if you will. Now, you can get into every single Pokemon on the list. You can talk about the legendaries. You can talk about you can talk about this Pokemon, you can talk about that Pokemon, you can talk about grass types, fire types, water types. You can talk about it all. But there's only one Pokemon that everybody knows, everybody loves, everybody respects. And that's Pikachu, everybody. Now, I gotta tell you, since the day I laid my eyes on that little mouse, I knew for a fact that it was something that it's like the pet you always want. It's just so lovable. It's so cool. And I like how everybody goes back to like the beginnings of Pokemon, when he was like a little bit more chunky, you know what I mean? He was just a little chunk, And everybody was in love with him for that. And now that they've kind of made him a bit they made him skinnier, everybody's like, listen, give us back the original Pikachu. I just like that people are doing that. And I honestly don't know what they're going to do without him anymore. Right? Because now it's kind of like leaning more towards this, towards these new Pokemon. They're moving towards Sprigatito and Fuecoco and Quaxley. They're not going to journey with Pikachu per se. At least I think. I mean, they're always good. They're going to find a way to squeeze Pikachu in there, right? They're going to find a way to keep him in the franchise, because he's the most recognizable face of the franchise. Everybody knows it. So I just think, and I just feel like, above all else, I have to keep in mind that it's just for kids. Like, it's like, it was good when I was a kid, and that's what gave me great nostalgia. But I have to keep in mind that, like, anything that I might want, you have to keep it PG. You can't, or PG-13. You can't expect like this high, gross, bloody bones, even though that's kind of what they're doing, right? Like, imagine a big dinosaur plant trying to vine whip you, and then a big dragon, fire-breathing Pokemon comes out of the sky and burns you alive, right? Like, the Pokemon world is crazy. But, nobody dies. Nobody's bones get broken. They don't even have regular, at least I haven't, in a long time seen a real life doctor help people. You know what I mean? Except for like in the first few episodes, we see like a real life doctor, a real doctor, like a human doctor. And then all there is Nurse Joy. You know what I mean? That's just how I feel. Anyways. Pokemon has come to an end. That is what has happened. Ash and Pikachu have parted ways, and it hit me in the feels, man. It definitely got to me. But I'm excited to see what happens moving forward. I'm excited to continue on this journey of life, of Pokemon, and of the franchise. And I don't know. I just feel like this was such a big moment that I wanted to talk about it, and it was something that hit home with me because I've been watching the show for so long since I was a kid that it only felt right to kind of say goodbye and a big thank you to that show and to that series of characters and that journey for it to all come to a very satisfying and very heartfelt conclusion. So that's just what I'll say about it. So anyways, guys, thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you guys so much for subscribing to the YouTube channel. It means so much to me. And I'll see you guys all next time. Thank you.